Okay, let's continue with the next speaker. He's Allan from the Qt company, and he's going to talk about Qt's web offering an overview. So please, Allan.
Yeah, I never turn these things off. Yeah, I'm going to talk about all the web offerings we have that Qt has, which is all the modules we provide to you that has the word web in it. And I'm just going to go through all of them because we have a lot of these technologies. A lot of people don't know when to use one or the other, or don't know what they're for. So going through here so you know which technology is available where and what their purpose are. So first, as I was introduced, my name is Allan Jensen, work for the Qt company. Since 4 years, was hired by Nokia, but I've been working on Qt much longer than that. I started in university and even began working on HTML and WebKit while I was still studying because it was simply so much more fun to work on WebKit than to write my master thesis. It probably cost me a few years extra in university, but it was a great pleasure to be hired by Nokia and then work on Qt WebKit, which I became the maintainer of. I now write former maintainer. I'm still the official maintainer, but we don't no longer officially maintain WebKit, so don't know if you can be a maintainer when you don't maintain anything. And now I lead the WebEngine team instead. So the overview of what we're going to talk about, the same things that we show on the front page: WebKit, WebView, WebEngine, WebSockets, and WebChannel. And I've reserved some time at the end for questions, but you can also ask questions during the talk. It's easier if we're still on the subject because we're going to move around so much. So what is this thing with WebKit, and why do I have a line through it? If you were at the keynote, which I hope you did, you know Lars said it was deprecated in 5.5, and it's going to be removed in 5.6. And I've had a lot of feedback from people who are worried about this, that it's going to be removed, because they say they depend on it. The thing is, when we say it's removed, it means we're removing it from our official packages. It's still in sources. We still have the tree. You can still check out the tree. We still have CI bots testing it. So Qt WebKit is still available. You just have to compile it yourself. We do not ship it as a binary in our official packages. And we recommend people to move away from it because we have the new technologies, and we want you to use Qt WebView and Qt WebEngine that we're actually working on. And if there's something there that you need that we don't have, we want you to tell us that you're going to need these things. And WebKit is, well, right now I still think it's safe, but it's been 2 years since we forked it from upstream, and it's been a year since we stopped tracking Safari 7. The first year, we'd forked Qt WebKit at the same point as Safari 7, so we could just look at all the patches that Apple cherry-picked to Safari 7, and then take the same patches, so we got all the security updates that way. After last year, we have to do that ourselves, and since we are maintaining Qt WebEngine, focusing primarily on Qt WebEngine, we're not actively doing that. So we're not actively looking for if there's anything we need to take. So that means we only patch the things that people tell us about, which means in a couple of years, it might have issues with WebKit. It's something we'd like you to move off of. But it still has some things, and if you have application using it, it has a full-featured API. It has, especially Qt WebKit widgets, has a specific single-process API that's getting increasingly rare. I'll get back to this, because all the other models are multi-process. But of the technologies we've been talking about, not all of them are replacements of WebKit. WebKit still had something it could never support. It could never run on iOS and Windows iPhones and Microsoft phones, which has forced us to invent this thing called Qt WebView, which, well, if we're not allowed to ship a web engine or a WebView, the only way to make a WebView available on these devices is by wrapping the native one, because there's not allowed to be any others. And this is what Qt WebView is. It's a wrapper of the native WebView, specifically for the mobile devices. Has backends for Android and iOS, add those in 5.5, and in 5.6 we also added one for WinRT, so also ones on Windows phones. There's even a native OS X version, but that requires specific flags in the scene graph to integrate correctly with the Qt Quick scene graph, so that's not built by default, but you can use it if you want to use the native WebView. The biggest downside is that it's only a QML API. I'm still a big fan of the old widgets as a desktop developer, but it's not that hard to nest a QML item into widgets. And you can see here an overview of the different technologies as we move on to WebEngine. The WebEngine is available on the same platforms that QWebKit was, all the desktop platforms and embedded Linux, where Qt WebView is available everywhere. On the platforms where it doesn't have a native backend, like the mobile platforms, it simply uses Qt WebEngine as the backend. So Qt WebView is available everywhere. But yeah, Qt WebEngine started in 2013. Not surprisingly, at the same time we last updated WebKit from upstream, and it was first introduced in Qt a year later in 5.4, and simply seen new releases with every single version of Qt, based on newer versions of Chromium. But you can see like there's a lot of gaps here. So when I say it's based on Chromium, what does that mean? If you're a Linux user, you probably think Chromium is a browser. It's the open source version of Chrome. But Chromium is more accurately the project behind all the open source code that Chrome uses. And Chromium is simply the name they have for the pre-release or the unbranded version of the browser. I think that's probably inspired by Apple, who has this WebKit browser you can download, which is like the pre-release of Safari. Often hear a lot of people say that Qt WebEngine is based on Blink, and it's not directly true, because Blink is one part of Chromium. Chromium is this big project that contains a lot of libraries. One of them is Blink. It used to be WebKit. But it also contains multimedia, WebRTC. It contains a complete copy of FFmpeg. It has its own network layer. And it does the process separation, where Chromium runs a separate process for each tab, so that if the web content, like if WebKit crashes, it doesn't bring down the whole application. And you can even take that process and sandbox it. So if it crashes and there's a buffer overflow, you can protect it. And Chromium is all of this. It's a big library of things with a huge API. And it has this very aggressive release schedule. They release a new version every 6 weeks, time-based, where Qt tries to aim at a release schedule of every 6 months. So there's like an offset of about 4, which is why Qt 5.4 had 37, and 5.5 had 40, and 5.6 is going to have 45, simply based on the version that is stabilizing at the point when we have feature freeze. So there's always going to be like these 4 releases between them. And it's not a stable API. You can't use Chromium directly. It's an unstable API. They change, for every version here, they change the API that we use. We have to rewrite a lot of parts. We also get a lot of requests where people say, why don't you update the Chromium engine whenever Chrome updates? Well, we can't do that because we can't do that rewrites all the time. The rewrite is what we do with the new versions of Qt. So if you want the newest Chrome engine, you have to use the newest version of Qt, the newest version of Qt WebEngine. And we also make sure to backport security fixes, because the way Google works is that when they release 40 and they have a security hole in it, they will release 41. And they say, well, if you want to have the security hole in 40 fixed, update to 41. If there's a security hole here, update to 42. So this is something we have to provide. We backport security fixes to this stable API so that you can have a stable version of WebEngine. And we have a lot of patches on top of it, stripping out parts that are not used. Don't know if you heard here before summer, Debian had this big issue where they found out Chromium had this secret code that would turn on the microphone and listen to OK Google. It turned out it was not enabled by default, but it was a big panic for a while. And we were looking through the code. Oh, are we shipping that too? Turns out this is one of the things that we deleted. It's like we don't need that, so we deleted a lot of things from Chromium directories because we don't use this code, so let's get rid of it. And we have the Qt scene graph integration. If you're interested in more of these things about WebEngine, there's a talk tomorrow by Kai Koehner, which is going to go into a lot more details about WebEngine. He has an hour, and I have 30 minutes, and I have to go through all of these modules. So if you're interested in more details, you go to the talk late tomorrow. But yeah, ideally use the latest version of Qt WebEngine if you want the latest Chromium. We will try with 5.6 to make it possible for 5.6 to build it with Qt 5.5 if you for some reason don't want to update Qt, but just want the latest Chromium engine. Hopefully we can do the same thing with 5.7 and 5.6, so you can update to the latest version of Chromium web engine that way without updating everything else. 5.6, a lot of new features. Again, Kai will go into more details tomorrow. But one of the things that it has that are new in 5.6 is network integration. One of the things that really differentiates QWebKit and QWebEngine is that in QWebKit, we not only provided an API for WebKit, we also provided a backend. So we also had the Qt network stack and the Qt graphics stack. In Chromium, we use the Chromium network stack. So it's not using the Qt network stack. A lot of the things that people implemented by using the Qt network stack was not readily available to begin with in WebEngine, so we've had to implement new APIs to control some of these things. And in 5.6, there'll be ways to intercept requests, so you can do ad blocking, you can control some cookies, you can make your own custom URL schemes. We'll follow proxy settings. There'll be a lot of new stuff from Chromium, and we will even have Flash plugins. It seems ironic now that everybody are moving away from it, but PP API that we use for plugins is also useful for other things than Flash. But to begin with, it just means that in 5.6, well, Flash will work. But there are some things that we do not have available yet because we've been focusing on this hybrid case of Qt WebEngine. There are some desktop things like notification and drag and drop that doesn't work yet. And there's some embarrassing things like printing, which is I really want to have fixed. Hopefully we'll have that in 5.7. But what really makes a big difference between the QWebKit and WebEngine and WebView is the interaction model. Like if you have a hybrid application, you have some kind of web page and you want to change something in it, what you usually do is execute JavaScript. And what QWebKit widgets do is that it could do it synchronously. You could call evaluate JavaScript, and it would either read a value directly from JavaScript, or it would push a change into it directly, and it was always synchronous. Once you have the process separation, you can't do that anymore. When you read something, the code might change underneath. The process is running at the same time. That is a better way of handling it. That means that everything are not stopping and everything is fluent. But it is a different coding model, and we had exactly the same problem with Qt WebKit QML, because Qt WebKit QML used the WebKit 2 API, which is a multi-process. So it requires a different way of doing it. Where Qt WebView and Qt WebEngine both have this new call called run JavaScript. It's basically the same as evaluate JavaScript. It evaluates JavaScript inside the view, but it does it asynchronously. So you push a change and it will be changed as soon as possible. You read a value and it will be churned through a callback. But besides the evaluate JavaScript, Qt WebKit widgets has another thing. It could do a very specific thing called add JavaScript to window object, which was this magic thing where you could take a QObject and insert it into the DOM of a web page. So that way, JavaScript could call C++. You can see the first one, evaluate JavaScript, is a way for C++ to call JavaScript. The second one is a way for putting a QObject in so that JavaScript can call Qt. And that one is tricky, but fortunately a guy was already working on that, and that is the Qt WebChannel. Qt WebChannel is a way that parses or exposes a QObject and all the metadata it has, like the invocables and the properties, and makes those into a mirrored JavaScript object on that side. So you can use that with any of these modules. Qt WebChannel can be used with Qt WebKit 2, the Qt WebKit QML. It can be used with Qt WebEngine. And with some effort, it can be used with Qt WebView. It simply can export a QObject into any JavaScript. And it can do that through different ways. It can either have native integration. With WebEngine, it has native integration where it can go in and through the Chromium IPC layer, talk directly to the JavaScript content. But it can also do it through WebSockets. WebSockets are this HTTP upgrade. It's like it's a specific protocol that you can upgrade HTTP to that supports a bit more features. But the nice thing about it is that it's an upgrade of HTTP, which means it has all the things that HTTP does. It goes through firewalls the same way. It has SSL support out of the box. And we have this module called Qt WebSockets, which ironically is the Qt implementation of WebSockets. Who would have thought? It doesn't do that much except communicate with WebSockets, but that is enough. I mean, that is the same as you would with any TCP socket. And that can be used by Qt WebChannel to communicate with these QObjects, so it can push a definition of a QObject to JavaScript. So JavaScript can call it, and when JavaScript calls some of those definitions, it can do callbacks back over WebSockets and execute these things. One of the things to remember, though, with Qt WebChannel is that because it exposes C++ directly into the JavaScript, it should generally be used with control content. Usually that comes a given because you have to inject certain amount of JavaScript code to bootstrap it. But it just, if people are writing a browser and wants to have some functionality with this, just be careful with it because you can easily expose things from C++ that are dangerous if a hostile websites get to it. I mean, you can do a lot of things with C++ you can export. So you can, if you're using this, you just think about who has access to the object that you export, because you can export anything. It's really, really powerful technology. And well, it integrates directly with WebEngine, and with Qt WebView, you can do it over a WebSocket. Oh, that was a lot of fast talking. Actually, 4 minutes faster than expected. So, if there's something you missed or confused about, you have some extra minutes to ask questions.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Can I use Qt WebView inside the QWidget application running on a mobile platform?
I guess so. I mean, the question is if you can run Qt WebView inside a widgets application. As I said, it doesn't have a widgets API, so you have to. One of the first things you have to do is wrap it inside a Qt widget. I haven't tried it, but I would assume it works. Normally, we don't recommend using widgets on mobile platforms because they don't interact very well with touch. But yeah, it should be doable. I don't see any reason why it's not.
I thought because of how the rendering is done, widget-based is not using WebGL. I don't know what WebView thingy uses. Is that some problem you might foresee?
Yeah, the question is if there's a problem. Well, the way it would do is that it's using a native WebView, so it's not even rendering through the widget stack. It's rendering with its own overlay, so it requires that there are support for multiple windows. Like EGLFS is always that problem that it only supports one surface. Once you do that with widgets, you are going to have multiple surfaces, so it might not work always. Yes?
Did I get it right that I can use the WebChannel to execute C routine on a server while pressing a button on a mobile?
Yes. I mean, you can use it to have a Qt application running anywhere and have any web page call into it. Yes, that's the point, to expose a Qt object with a JavaScript API, so it becomes a JavaScript object.
I don't need a web page. I'm looking for a thing that I press a button on a mobile and afterwards it runs a routine on a server. And that sounds a little bit like work like that.
Yes, I think it might be a little bit overkill for an IPC layer like that, but yes, it can be used to make remote calls available on a server. Yes?
Cookie support in WebView?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's no support for using the same cookies that we have in Qt Network. It will just use the native cookie store, so it will behave the same way that any other WebView. So it will have the same cookies. We don't have a specific API to control the cookies in Qt WebView, like we have in Qt WebKit and WebEngine.
How would you read a cookie?
That depends. That's how you would read them. That depends on the architect on the hardware. We don't have a common API for it, so that would have to be specific. Yes.
Would it be possible to
No, that's why we provide this thing where you can compile a new Qt Web engine with an older Qt, because it is about a month's work to a manual to update Chromium, because we have this entire layer of code that wraps around the Chromium code. Basically, Chromium does not have a stable API. If you want a stable Chromium API, you have to use Qt WebEngine or CEF or something similar. And this is what we provide, and we have to rewrite a lot of the underlying code for every single Chromium release. Yes?
Are you considering making the version number for the Qt WebEngine module separate of the Qt version to somewhat alleviate that?
Not yet. Like, it's been talked about, and we do not want the confusion at this point. He was asking whether we considered a separate versioning of Qt WebEngine, and we do not want that yet. Hopefully it won't be necessary, but it's certainly been something that we've been discussing and saying, nah, it could get confusing. Yes? So he's asking about the difference between the performance between Qt WebKit and Qt WebView. Well, I think Qt WebView will be much more performant because it will be in the native implementation. Qt WebKit, you often have to do things a very specific way to get optimal hardware acceleration, where the native WebView, assuming it's been coded right, is already using the most optimal hardware acceleration for the platform. Yes? Yeah, Qt WebView is the Qt wrapper around the native WebView on mobile devices. On a desktop device, it's just a wrapper around Qt WebEngine. Any more questions?
How about performance compared to the WebKit bridge and the WebChannel?
Yeah, he's asking about the performance between Qt WebChannel and the QObject bridge we had in Qt WebKit. Well, there's obviously going to be a difference because one of them goes over a network stack. There's going to be a lot higher ping time. It's not something you should use for a tight loop. On the other hand, it's not something that is terribly processing powerful, but it's certainly something that's going to take a longer time because it has to go through network requests to go between processes. Yes? Which one did you say? Electron, I don't know it. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, I can wrap up and we can go to the break and be more time for the next speaker to set up. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, let's thank Allan for the talk. So